connection and everything is working great. Welcome you guys. I am so excited. So today we are going to be talking about mastering your gray. And I'm going to let a few of you start to come on here while I pull this up. Oh, my allergies are awful right now. So pretty much today we are going to go over mastering your gray, aka let's master some gray coverage. Now, for those of you that are viewing me on Instagram, you guys can go into my highlights that are on the bio on my page, and you guys will find exactly what I'm talking about. I made a slideshow for you guys. Let's see if I can turn it around to show you. So you'll see this guy right here, and it says Master Your Gray. So head on over to my Instagram page and my highlights. You will find the slides that I'm going to be talking about today like you would in a real class. So if not, you can go on to ruskpro.com, and tomorrow they will be having an upload of the slides of all the information that I'm going to give you guys today, and everything that I'm going off of as my notes, you'll be able to get from there. All right, master your gray. Now, how many of you guys have had struggles with gray coverage in a sense of hollow roots, hot roots, not covering, spots that take, that don't, being able to have a warm tone, a cool tone, being able to have red roots? I feel like gray formulation is something that like we touch on a little bit in beauty school. And then as we become professionals, it's kind of like trial and error, trying to figure out what works best for you. And so what I'm going to go over today is everything that has been tried and true that has worked for me, and anything that I'm speaking about when it comes to hair color, specifically hair color line. Of course, you know I'm going to be speaking about Rusk, because you guys will see I'm going to get into talking about developers and that sort of stuff. And I know other lines recommend different stuff. So this is in reference to Rusk. I'm going to give you guys a lot of information that's going to give you tools to use outside and possibly get you to join over to the Rusk side. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to use my slides because that is the best way to keep me on track. And we're going to stay on track today because I can literally start talking, and I'm going to stay on track. Struggles. So I talked about all the struggles that you guys have with, getting coverage, hot roots, hollow roots, consistency. That is what we're going to go over today. When we have our clients sit in our chair and they are needing their grays to be colored, you need to have a conversation with them first and ask them, are we wanting 100% coverage or are we wanting blending? I feel like the trend for a lot of women, especially since COVID happened, has been more of having a gray blending. They're not wanting that full coverage, but I still have a spectrum that wants the full coverage. And that is what I'm going to touch on today, is more of the full coverage side and not the blending. So when they sit in your chair, old school way, I do not have mine in here because it's in my studio where I do hair and I still use it. I feel like these level finders are very, 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 very important to not only check exactly what level you're formulating at, because if you're off by one level, you're going to end up having a hot root, a different root color than what the rest of their grow out is. So you would be shocked if you go over and you take your swatches and you take it and you put it up to your client and check it. And when you check it, I don't want you just plopping it on their head, okay? I want you guys to take your color that you're going for. Let's say we're wanting to have a target level of a 5N. We're going to take it and we're going to come over to our client and we're going to spread it out and then rest it into their hair and kind of mix. And we're going to see where their true level is hitting. After we do that, when it comes to grays, I want you guys to pull out, it's the one I said I don't have here. I want you to pull out your gray finder. So a lot of you guys will find that you have swatches that have like salt and pepper swatches, and it'll say usually like 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. That is the one that you want to pull out. And that is so important with our formulation because when we go to mix our bowl of color, if they are 50% gray, 50%, so half of your formula needs to either be N or double N. And that is how you're going to get that coverage. So for example, my client is a level 5 and we need to get gray coverage and she wants an ashier result. I'm not just going to take a straight 5N, mix it on and put it on her roots. I'm not going to take a straight 5A, mix it up and put her on her roots. I'm also not going to go, okay, she wants ash. I don't want to put too much N in it because I don't want it to be, not as ashy as I want it. You need to put that percent of gray that you got with your little level finder, 50%, that's our example we're using. You're going to take that 50%, you're going to grab that level 5N or 5NN, put it in. So we're going to say that our total formula is going to be 40 grams. So I'm going to take 20 grams of 5N, and then my target level is a 5 ash. So then I'm going to take 20 grams of 5A, and that is going to be my formulation for my color in my bowl to cover my gray and then be able to achieve that ashier tone that I want. So keep that in mind, and that's why it's very important to get your level finder, you guys, and really make sure. I can't tell you how many classes and how many stylists I've talked to that they think somebody is maybe like a 5, but perhaps they're a 4. So beware and make sure you are using this level finder and your gray finder because those are your tools. I feel like for so long, like bringing out your level finder to your client, I used to get embarrassed by it. I'd be like, oh my God, she's going to think I don't know what I'm doing. I should be able to clock this right off and get it. But talking to them the way that I just spoke to you, they are going to be so happy that you are taking the time to really get their exact color and the exact amount of gray that they are. So that's first things first. First step, so we have our color in our color bowl. What is the next step? So the next step is going to be what developer. So I'm going to read off my little slide I have. And once again, you guys, these slides that I'm reading on that I took a lot of time to make, you can find them on the highlights on my Instagram bio or go to ruskpro.com tomorrow morning and they'll have them up there for you guys to follow along. So what developer? Your tube of color is where you get your lift from. So when we are thinking about lift, it's not from our developer. It is going to be from our tube of color. Your tube of color is your activator. So once you take your bowl and you pour your developer into that bowl, this developer is what's going to activate this color. It's going to get those color molecules going and it's going to get it happy and it's going to be ready to go. So that's what the developer is going to do. Your developer, think of it different than lightener. In lightener, our developer is going to help us with our lift in that. When it comes to hair color, tubes of color, we are looking at our developer as our activator. That is what is going to activate that chemical compound and create that process of the pigmentation into the hair. So when it comes to that, the higher the developer you use, the more it eats through the pigment. Let me say that again. The higher the developer you use, the more it's going to eat through your pigment. What? So, okay, first of all, I'm working on not saying so often. We're going to work on that one. When we're in beauty school, we're taught 20 volume. I can't tell you how many tests that I took that was like, for gray coverage, what developer do you use? For gray coverage, what developer you use? And it was always, always, always a 20 volume. So I want you to switch that, at least when it comes to Rusk hair color. And I want you to think of when we are using a higher developer, that higher developer is what's going to process and eat through that color faster. So if I want a more depth, more pigment, more tone, more richness, am I going to take a 20 volume developer to those roots that are already producing heat from the head? No, I'm going to go and I'm going to grab typically my 10 volume. That one will really do good for me. I'll either grab my 10 volume or I will go and I will grab my 0 lift, because working with the lower developers, it is going to allow all that pigment to really maintain that depth for you. Versus, say I'm wanting to do a red, something that's bright and beautiful. I'm not going to do it on the roots. I'm going to use perhaps a 30 volume developer, because I know that's going to create more brightness within the color, because it's going to eat it up and kind of make it a little bit brighter. So pay attention to the developer that you are using and that you are adding into your color bowl, because that is going to dictate whether you're going to get hot roots or more depth. When it comes to gray coverage, as long as your color in your bowl is formulated correctly, you'll have 100% gray coverage. And getting to this, I know it scares the bejeezers out of any hair colors, where they're like, Katie, that is crazy. I am not going to use a 10 volume or a 0 lift for my gray coverage. It's not going to cover. But if you guys think about what I just told you, when we first mixed our color into our color bowl, and we're taking care of that gray percentage, that's where we're going to get that pigment. That's where we're going to get that lift and that swell in the cuticle. It's not from the developer. That developer is just your activator. We are going through it. Next on the list is, do you know what system you're using? And this one, you guys, this was like one of the slides that I worked really, really hard on. So you have to check it out. I literally went through. Oh, let me make it not fall. I don't know if you guys can see it well, but I have like a whole level system in here of what I'm talking about. For example, we have 2 level systems when it comes to hair color. And I didn't really know this until probably like 10 years ago. I've been doing hair a hot minute. I didn't know this right off the bat. I didn't know this in school. I didn't know this year 1, year 2, year 3. It's really not talked about. So when hair color was first developed, it was developed in Europe. And in Europe, they have a bigger range of colors. So if you're working with a European line, you're going to be working with, you're going to be working with levels 1 through 12. If you are working with American level system, you're going to be working with levels 1 through 10. That is insane. If you are switching color lines and you don't know what level system your color line is, and you switch to another color line, you go to put a level 6 on your client's roots with, say, a European line, and you go to use that same level 6 in an American line, there you go. That's why you have hollow and hot roots, because your American line, if you're used to European, you need to drop 1 full level. 1 full level. With Rusk, our Deep Shine Permanent, which is this line right here. I have the little picture in the back. Isn't she beautiful? I did this model. I love it. But Deep Shine Permanent is European. It is European. It is European. And European is honestly the most common level system that you'll find in a lot of color lines. Ruskin 10, my baby that you guys see me use a lot, Ruskin 10 is American level. So if I'm going from one color line to the other color line, I need to be aware of what level I'm grabbing, because, you know, each level we have our NRP, our natural remaining pigment, and an NRP in a level 5 is different than in a level 6. A level 5's natural remaining pigment is a red. A level 6 is a red-orange. So if you're formulating to control that warmth, enhance that warmth, you're dealing with completely different tones. And so that's going to create some squirreliness with your gray coverage as well if you're not putting in the right pigments that you want. Even say you have the right percentage of N or NN in your color bowl, but you're using the wrong level because you don't know if you're working with an American color line or European color line. Mind blown. And so if you do not know, if you're not a Rusky, I recommend going and talking to any sort of rep. If you have a rep comes into your salon, like say from Cosmoprof or any of those, ask them if they know. If they don't know, you can usually find it on the website. But hopefully you guys are using Rusk. And just remember that Deep Shine Permanent is European, and then Ruskin 10 is American. And it's going to make a world of a difference when it comes to your formulation, with whether you're going to have a hollowness to it or not. If you guys want, like I said, if you want to see this whole big pattern, you can't see it here. I have it in my highlights and it'll be on Rusk Pro tomorrow morning. Or you guys can shoot me a message directly or comment on here and I can send you one. I can send you all the slides directly to you. Next slide. Ooh, this one's my fun one. Anchor color and boost in tack. Pro tips to troubleshoot coverage. What exactly is an anchor color? An anchor color involves selecting a tube of color and incorporating a ribbon of that hue into your formula. This technique adds depth, especially for darker shades. Additionally, it introduces more ash, gold, copper without altering your original formula, ultimately enhancing your color. I wrote that. So I haven't memorized that one yet because this is newly what I wrote. What is an anchor color? What did I just read to you guys? All right. We have our bowl of color. And remember, our bowl of color that I've been using for an example today has been 20 grams 5N, 20 grams 5A. She has 50% gray, and we're wanting to control that warmth in her hair with 50% of her formula 5A. Now, what if you're sitting there and you've colored this client before and you're like, I need more depth. You know that client that like you don't want to drop them a half a level. You really don't want to drop them a full level. You don't want to take that 5 to a 4 because I feel like a 4, it can borderline make your client feel like they have black hair because it's a dark brunette. But if I were to take that formula that I just told you guys and we take a tube of 4N, and I'm pretending this is my bowl of color for you guys, and this is my tube. We're going to do a ribbon. A ribbon of color is from one side of the bowl to the other. When it weighs out, it's 5 milliliters. Not that you need to adjust anything in your formula. That's just a random fact that I have. So you're going to take the 4N and you're going to put a ribbon of it across. What is that going to do? It's not going to affect your formula in a way where you need to add more developer. It's not going to affect your gray coverage. It's not going to affect your ash. But what it's going to do is that 4 has more pigmentation in it than a 5. So adding a ribbon of it, you are adding just enough depth into that color where you're not altering them a half a level or a full level, but you're achieving and getting more depth. I like to use an anchor color, especially when I am working with coppers or reds or ashes or any of those pure tones that you want to add in, but you don't want to add too much. A really good one that I like to use for an example is, so if you have that client, she has white gray hair. Like we are talking, she comes in, you see her outgrowth, you don't even need to go like this to look at it. You see that white strip coming in and you know right off the bat, girlfriend is getting a double NN and that's where we're at. But white hair literally has no pigment in it. So to help with getting better coverage on those clients that have more white than pepper hair, I like to add gold to it. I like to add in that warmth into it because it's going to fill it and help allow for better deposit of your pigmentation of your bowl of formula that you've used here. So she is 100% gray. You have your bowl right here. We're going to say it's at level 5 again. Easiest one to do. And we have our bowl right here, a 5NN, mixed up, ready to go for her. But this client, she comes back and you're like, I need to add something more to it. I need to add like something, it's too hollow. It doesn't have that shine. It doesn't have that like that glitter, that prettiness to it. That's when I'm going to use an anchor color of a G. So that's when I would take a G, a 5G, 6G, whatever G that you want that's closest to that level you're using, and take a ribbon of it from one side of the bowl to the other side of the bowl. That is not going to affect her gray coverage at all. But what it's going to do is it's going to help give that pigmentation that white hair is missing, but it's not going to give so much that you're like, well, yeah, now I have like a pretty color, but I have not the coverage that I was looking for. So really utilizing anchor colors. Anchor colors is something that was just taught to me probably 4 years ago. And it has been a game changer. When I need to tweak a color formula just a little bit, that's when I will add in an anchor color, whether it be copper, ash, a level that's darker. And that way I always know that it's not going to adjust the formula. But please write it down. Write it down that you did use an anchor color, because it never fails. That client's going to come back and they're going to love it. And you're going to go, oh my gosh, what did I just use? So for example, in my Vagaro, it's the booking app that I use. It allows me to leave notations for my clients and their formulas. I'll make sure I put in there a ribbon of this, and I'll put the date in there that I used it. Okay, I'm going to take a little break, and I have 2 streams going on. We have YouTube right here. We have Instagram here. I am going to check and see what questions I have on YouTube. And let's see. So does the ribbon work almost as a kicker to boost the pigment? Yes. So using an anchor color is kind of like using a kicker and adding it into your formula. And it's in a way where you've already pre-mixed your color and you're needing to add a kick, an oomph of something else, but you're not wanting to completely have to redo this formula in here when you're looking for gray coverage. So absolutely, you can look at a anchor color like it is a kicker. So you can kick it and add just enough depth, some copper, especially with those red heads. Let me get into that one. When you are formulating for a gray coverage red head, that was probably one of the hardest ones for me to conquer. I either ended up with too hot of roots, too neutral. It just never hit right. With my go-to formula when it comes with gray coverage and getting that coverage, but not just that, but getting that pigmentation that a redhead wants. First of all, it comes with consultation. You have to make sure that you're talking with your client and going, okay, your mids and ends are level 6R. To them, you're going, your mids and ends are red. Do you want your roots to match that red? Or can we make them a little bit more depth to them, a little bit more richness to them? Because honestly, that's how hair color grows out. If you sat there and you looked at a little girl that's a brunette and you parted open her hair, you're going to see that her roots are darker than her outgrowth, because that is virgin hair that has just grown from the head that has not been exposed to heat or any sort of element. So it's going to be richer. That is how I explain it also to my clients that are on the fence. If they're wanting more of a natural look, I like to have a different formula for my roots that is richer for them. And that is going to tie into helping make sure that you have a little bit more insurance when it comes to giving the right coverage when it goes into the red realm of gray coverage. I like to do, we love examples. Let's give an example. We love working with level 5s because level 5 and 6, I think that is the most popular 2 levels we work with. Sally Jo came in and she is a level 5. And she has her outgrowth, and her outgrowth is like a 5M, 6R. It's rich, it's cool, it's very vibrant. And she has 50% gray roots. How are you going to formulate that? Well, we need to make sure we're accounting for those gray roots, right? And what did I tell you guys? You have to first add in your N or your NN to account for the gray that you're dealing with. So since Sally Jo has 50% gray, I'm automatically going to go over to my N series, reach for that. 20 grams of that is going to be the N or the NN. Now we need to work with the reds. At the roots, we call it hot roots for a reason, because have you ever seen a redhead where you can see their roots? The roots is brighter than the rest of their hair. That is hot roots. So the best way to handle that is, say they're more of like an R than they are like a VR or an M or a cooler. I will take 20 grams of the R that they are, say it's a 5R, we'd put that 5R in, and then I'd use that anchor color of adding in the 5M to cool it down. Then that is when it's really important to make sure you drop your developer. Your gray is taken care of in this color. So to make sure you're giving as much pigmentation as you can, use a 0 lift, use a 10 volt. It's gonna make sure that all that pigment you packed into that bowl of color is going to get onto the roots. And that is so important when it comes to reds, is the pigmentation and the saturation and the deposit. If you don't hit those, you're gonna have hot roots. Another thing that I like to make sure I do, let's throw a hard one out there. Sally Jo comes in and she's 100% gray. She is 100% gray. You see that gray right there. And then she has her outgrowth. There are 2 ways that you can approach this situation. One is easier and the one is trickier. The first one, she's 100%. So I've been telling you guys, formulate with the N series. Well, if she's 100% and her mids and ends are a 6R, how am I going to cover that gray and make it red? What you're going to do is you're going to mix up your N series. This is how I do it, and my way is not the only way or the right way. Everyone has their way. I will take this bowl of color, and what I'm going to do is, say Sally Jo, because I said she was a 6R. She's 100% white gray root. I'm going to mix up a level 6, and I'm going to do like almost all of it. Almost all my 40 grams is going to be a 6N. I'm going to probably do it at 35 grams N, 6N, and then I'm going to take my 6R and I'm going to add 5 grams to that, and then I'm going to add an anchor of another 6R to that. And instead of the 0 lift, I might go for, say, a 10 volume. It's covering that gray, but the issue you're going to run into is you're like, that's a full N series on her head with a hint of warmth. Her outgrowth is very red. How do we handle that? How you can handle that is you can go in, and when you rinse that out, put a gloss on top of it. You need to refresh her outgrowth anyways. So making sure you get that 6R and you really saturate her root area. You're going through with your toner bottle or your bowl and brush and you're really saturating. That is going to be the key. I also like to cool down any of my red formulations, whether it's gray roots or not. I always cool down my roots with a cool tone, whether it's a VR or an M. I'm going to put that in to my color and make sure I'm using a lower developer, because the body produces heat. And when the body's producing heat, it's going to get that color moving and grooving, and you're going to also get hot roots. I have also with roots, when it comes to red at the roots, is sometimes I will drop it down a half a level. Sometimes I'll drop it down a full level. It really depends on your client. And if you're wanting to tweak or adjust their formula, but you're too nervous to put it all over their head, what I recommend is have 2 formulas going in, mix this formula all over the front and the top and their back hairline on everything you're going to see. Take the second formula and place it back underneath where it's not going to be seen. This is how we actually test hair color. Like when we're testing Rusk against any of our competitors, that's how I am testing it to see how it compares. So this is a great way when you are scared to try out a new color formula, is to go in and test it out on the back side of their head. And then you can go, oh, I loved it. Or, oh, we need to tweak it a little bit. And that's how you can kind of work with it with that. All right, so now I checked on YouTube for questions. Let me scroll up. And anyone who's joining, I am saving this, and it will be on my Instagram and on my YouTube, and Rusk, it'll be on their page as well. We have a question here. What about 100% white gray, and they want to be a level 9-10 golden blonde? Coverage for that. That's a great question. Now, what did I tell you guys? Where do you get your lift from? You get your lift from your tube of color, right? And if they're wanting to be a golden blonde at a level 9-10, that's even better. Because if they're 100% white, and I like to add gold to any of my 100% whites, and we're using a tube of color, a level 9, and we're going to take an anchor color of a G and add it into there, that is going to give you that great lift from that tube of color. Then using an anchor of a G, or depending on what color line you're using, you know, they can vary with it. Like there's NGs, I'm not going to get into others, but specifically speaking to Rusk, you can make sure that you're using like Rusk in 10. You can use your level 9 and then add a ribbon of G across it. So that's a really great question. But that is one of the ones that if they're 100% white and they want to be golden blonde, that's kind of like dream case scenario. Yes, formulate all of your N in here. And it's already, I mean, a level 9, your NRP at a level 9 is going to be yellow, correct? That's what's going to be what you're formulating up to, but they are 100% white. So we're going to get that coverage, and then we're going to add the anchor, and that is going to help you so much with that. Next up we have is boost or tack. Also referred to as clear in other lines. Hold on. My puppy is barking, you guys. Hold on. Chaos, chaos. Live streaming. It happens. All right, stand up, stand up. Boost or tack. What is boost and what is tack? Like I just said, it's essentially clear. So if you're like, well, what is clear? You've seen clear, but you don't know what clear is. Clear or tack or boost is a colorless tube of color, aka ammonia in the tube. And what is that going to do when we add it to color? It's going to raise the alkaline. And when we raise the alkaline in color, what does that do to the hair? So envision the hair like shingles on a roof. It's going to swell those shingles open. When I say that when you're working with the higher levels of color, so when you're working with like an 8, a 9, or 10, they're going to have a higher alkaline. So when I say they have more lift, that is what I mean. And if you are having struggle with deposit, you've done everything I told you in this bowl of color. You've accounted for the gray, you've put the right developer in, but you got that client that is one of those that's going to give you a run for your money. Her gray isn't coloring, and you're like, what do I do? So this is a penetration issue. When we have a penetration issue, we need to add more alkaline. But when you're working on lower levels, like a 1 through 6, the alkaline isn't as high, so you're not going to get as much swell in the cuticle. That's why when you ask the question 100% white at a level 9, 10, that's ideal, because at a 9, 10, if you're using a tube of color of a 9, that's got alkaline in it. It's going to really, really swell that cuticle and help for a better deposit of your pigment. When working with Boost or Tack, Boost and Tack, they can be used as color tools on their own. You can completely use them on their own. That is a whole other thing that I'll get into. Specifically when we are speaking to gray coverage, when we are working with Boost or Tack, when I say Tack, Tack is TAC. It's triple action clear. That is what is used in Rusk Deep Shine Permanent. And then if you are using Rusk in 10, I'll show you guys the swatch. Like it's literally, it's a colorless tube of color. So this is, see how that's white? I showed up here. See, there's no color in it whatsoever. And Boost, and it'll say right here on the swatch. Let me see if I can get it to zoom in. Can you guys see that? Oh, the glare is there. The glare is there, but it's clear. There's no color in it whatsoever. Now, I have Sally Joe. She's come back in. And we're having a hard time still. And she's like, I just have a few hairs here that didn't color, or there's some areas up here that didn't color. My next line of defense is going to be Boost, Tack, or in other lines, Clear. What is Boost or Tack? I have my little thing I wrote down. Boost is used for Rusk and 10. Tack is for Deep Shine Permanent. They both are used the same way. A tube of colorless color is used to raise the alkaline. This will swell the cuticle, allowing for color pigment to deposit better. They can be used alone, or you can add a ribbon of it, like we talked about anchor colors. Add a ribbon of it to your gray formula to help deposit the color into stubborn gray hair. We talked about anchor colors. Now, when you're having that stubborn gray hair, I want you to grab either your Boost or your Tack and go, okay, how do I use this? You don't want to put a ton in there, because if you put a ton in there, it's going to work in a way that you don't need specifically for gray coverage. What you're going to want to do is add a ribbon. Add a single ribbon. Here's your bowl of color. Add a ribbon of your Boost or Tack from one side of the bowl to the other. That, my ladies and gentlemen, is one of my best tips that I have been using on a lot of my stubborn clients to really make sure that I am getting the coverage that I need with those stubborn clients that I'm just not getting. Because that gray, it's going to make sure that it gets in there. That stubborn gray that's just holding tight. And when you're coloring them, it's not really getting deep into that cuticle. So what the Tack or the Boost is going to do, it's going to open up that cuticle some more for you. It's going to open it up, and it's going to allow you to get that deposit of those pigments into that cuticle to get that coverage that you're looking for. All right, let me see my next slide. That's the last slide on that. Now, I get into great coverage when it comes to the Deep Shine Permanent. I think that there's been a ton of questions when it comes to the Deep Shine Permanent with how to know what for grays. And I want to break this down to you guys in a really super easy way. I was taught this when it comes to Deep Shine Permanent. I want you to think of their pigments as triple, double, and single. Triple. Triple is going to be for those super, super gray clients that you need to control that warmth on. That will be our NC series. So the I'm making sure both of you guys can see the NC. See how there's triple? You're going to see right here, our NC series, neutral, cool, triple. Triple is used at the roots. FYI, if we take neutral, cool is triple, brown, and blue. So brown is the 3 primary colors. So it's giving you a triple dose of both, and then a tad of blue just to control that warmth, especially if you have that beauty that's like, I don't want warmth. I don't want any at all. That's what it's going to do. But if you take this neutral cool and you pull it through their mids and ends, girl, you're gonna I'm not laughing, but you're gonna have some pigmentation issues, and that's gonna leave you with a major color correction that you're not gonna want to deal with. The next step is going to be the double. So the double is our neutral warm. So that is double brown with some yellow. So we were talking about wanting some warmth, adding some, gold into it. That is going to be our NW series for you guys. The NW is our neutral warm. And like I said, it's double brown. So that's double your primary colors, and then a hint of some yellow, which I find really great for those clients that are, that 100% white, where I'm adding my formula. Say it's Sally Joe, she's coming in and we're using a 5NC on her, but I want to add some warmth into it. I'll add some of my NW into that formula. I know that I'm going to get 100% gray coverage, but that is truly going to help with adding a little bit of warmth and a little bit of glitter so it's not too flat, because we know that cool tones absorb light so they can look flat. Warm tones reflect light, so it's going to give it that pizzazz. Next up is we have NL. I've been asked about this one a ton. So NL is our single. So it's red, yellow, blue. It's your single primary. There's no hint of blue added. There's no hint of yellow added. Our NL is our natural light. So the NL, if I have somebody with gray roots, I'm going to go through, and this is going to be more for, I talked about it earlier in the live, was if somebody's wanting more of gray blending, that's what I'm going to use my NL series for. So I'll show you guys if you can see. I know the glare is like awful, but there's the NL series. And those are the 3 series that I'm going to be looking for and grabbing if I am using Deep Shine Permanent for gray coverage. Now let me see. I think I have the tack swatch in here. I do. So I know at first when I was learning about Deep Shine Permanent, I was like, what the heck is tack? So here's your tack swatch. It's this one right here. Show you guys. See how it's clear? It's clear. And that, my dears, is all the info for Deep Shine Permanent when it comes to formulation with the gray roots. Now I'm going to switch over to my best friend, which is Rusk and 10. Rusk and 10. So if we are going from Deep Shine Permanent over to Rusk and 10, what are we going to remember? I miss live classrooms. We're going to remember that Deep Shine Permanent is European. So say we're like, all right, we want to play with some 10-minute color for some express luxury roots. What are we going to do? We're going to drop 1 full level. So Sally Joe that I've been saying is coming in with her level 5 that you've been using over here with your European line. You're going to come over to here to Rusk and 10, you guys, and you're going to need to make sure that you are dropping that 5 to a level 4. A level 4. Because if you go and you use that level 5 on Sally Joe, because you use a level 5 with the Deep Shine Permanent, we are going to have coverage issues. You're going to have hollow roots. You are not going to get that gray coverage that you are looking for. Once again, I'm reiterating, make sure you know if you're working with an American line or European line. With Rusk and 10, Rusk and 10 is a 10-minute express color. I love it for my gray beauties because I get them in and out in 1 hour. I add on our express gloss, that's 5 minutes. I do a gloss at their mids and ends. I use our 2-minute hair mask, bam, bam, thank you, man, and a little trim. They're getting everything that they could think of in 1 hour. And what's beautiful about Rusk and 10 is it's not progressive. It's not gonna go black. How many of you guys have worked with 10-minute color? And you're sitting there and you're like, okay, we're going to start in the back of their head, because by the time I get to the front, I can start that timer and I know it's going to look good, because the back is always going to look darker because it's been sitting. Every single minute after that 10-minute, it has been on the head. It's going to progressively get darker and darker. So that's why I absolutely adore Rusk and 10. It's not going to do that. And she does more than color gray roots. And we'll get into that in another one. specifically for today, when it comes to coloring gray roots, you can keep it on. If you're doing a highlight root touch-up, you can use Rusk in 10. Let those highlights sit on as long as they need to. Your 10-minute color is not going to be altered by it. Rusk in 10, we have our 5NN, our 7NN for our double pigmentation series for those really stubborn grays. And you're like, Katie, there's only 2. We have so many levels. When you think of it, with these 2, you can add them into any of the N series. So we have 1 through 8 that you can add them in, an anchor in, or even half of your formula and drop, and you can customize and really use it. This is going to help you cut down on your overhead of having to have a ton of color. It's having to think more about, okay, what coverage do I need? What level am I going? What can I grab from here? And how am I going to use that one? So that's why we have the 2. And then, like I said, we have 1 through 8. And with Rusk colors, they are pure pigment. So if you love the color wheel and you're like a color wheel geek like me, you're working literally with the true color wheel. You're not working with a black background. You're not working with a gray background. The N series, you're getting your brown background because you're using your 3 primary colors to get this for you. Then next up with Rusk in 10, we have our Ash series, 5A, 7A, 8A. Then we have our S. I'm going to reiterate this one, S, and all of Rusk color is not silver, because I thought that when I came to Rusk many years ago, I thought S was silver because you see that in other brands. S is sand. Sand is like the perfect balance of not too warm, not too cool. She's right there, right in the middle. Then we're going to skip over to here. We have our 6G and our 8G. These are going to be your besties when it comes to handling gray coverage and using them as anchor colors into your gray formulas with your 10-minute color. Then we have our 6C, 6CG, 5M, 6R, and then we have our HLA, and then as I pointed out to you guys that we were talking about, our boost that we have right here. Wow, I feel like I covered a lot today. If you guys have any questions, I'm right here. It's interesting. I feel like sometimes people are more shy with the virtual classes to like come on and ask a question than they are in class to like ask a question. So let me scroll through, see if I've gotten any questions. Okay. Ashley is on with Rusk and she is handling it. Leah, hey gorgeous. Sorry, YouTube, you guys. I'm looking over at Instagram, scrolling through. Looks like everything was handled. I love your eye makeup. You guys like my eye makeup? Totally off subject. It's the new ColourPop, the Haunted Mansion palette. I have like a love-hate relationship with it right now currently. Okay. Is permanent color always a better choice for gray coverage over a demi? When would you choose one over the other? That is a very, very good question. Why would you choose a permanent color over a demi color? And I really am going to talk about this. I'm going to make a whole thing on gray blending because we talked about gray coverage today. I would use, here's a better reference. This is a visual that I use all the time. Permanent color and demi color. I want you to think of permanent color like a black legging. Put it over your leg. You're not going to see your skin through it, right? And when the grow out happens, say you pull that legging down, you're going to see your skin and you're going to see that line of demarcation. Full coverage, full there, you're going to see the grow out. Demi is like a black pantyhose. Take a black pantyhose, put it over your leg. You're going to see, like, it's going to be coverage, but it's not the same coverage like you're getting from a black legging that's full. A black pantyhose over your leg, you're going to still see like your leg through it and your skin, and it's still going to give you the black, but the bigger difference too is the grow out is softer. You're not going to have as harsh of a line of demarcation because it's not permanent. Each wash that your client does, they're slowly going to lose that pigmentation, of that color, and therefore it's going to be an easier grow out, but they're going to see their grays. So that is the big difference. Do they want all their grays covered, every single bit, and that's what we talked about today? Or are they okay with seeing their grays? They would like to cover up some of them because demis will cover up a good amount of gray on the hair, especially if like you have like a 5N gloss and you add some G into that gloss, like we talked about, girl, it's going to work really good for you. And their grow out is going to be much softer and lower maintenance for them. So that's when I would, you know, use one versus the other. Great questions, you guys. All right, I'm hopping back over here to YouTube. Whew, we went through a lot, you guys. Thank you again for joining me. And like I had mentioned, I worked really hard to put together some slides that I'm hoping I will be streaming this next time where I can actually have them presentation wise up for you guys, because like I have like all of it here. If you go to my Instagram bio page, if you're on YouTube, just go to KTB Hair on Instagram and you will see in my highlights, I have them. Tomorrow morning on Rusk Pro, they're going to have them up on there in the Academy. So you guys, if you missed this or you didn't get to take notes or you want to see my notes and have them in depth where you have them on your phone and the convenience, if you're having any issues, you can use it as a reference. Gray coverage is one of those that is just not talked about a lot. And I think it is one of those that we struggle with. And it's one that I play with a lot too. I like to make sure I'm playing with it. Our bread and butter, a lot of us, those great clients are coming in to see us, you know, every 4 to 6 weeks. We got to make sure we're giving them the best service we can. I really need to try the Rusk Demi. What developer volumes do you personally like to use with them? So I love our glosses and our demis. I don't want to say the brand, but we all know a big brand out there and everyone uses it. We use that as our benchmark, and I feel like we exceeded it because the big brand that's out there, I feel like with ours, it gives you the pigment, it gives you the shine, but the big difference is how the hair feels. And with our glosses, our demis, you're going to either want to use 0 lift or you're going to want to use 10 volume. 0 lift, you're not going to get any base shift whatsoever. If you use the 10 vol, then you are going to get a slight base bump. And of course, with all of Rusk hair color, our developers are universal, so you can use them deep shine permanent, Rusk in 10, our demis, and our blondes. All right, you guys. Well, I had a beautiful night with you guys. I will be back here next week, Tuesday. You're welcome, Leah. I'll be back here next week, Tuesday, and perhaps I should talk about gray blending and using glosses for blending in that whole situation. So I will be writing that up this week. Have a beautiful, beautiful night. I love you, Leah. You're amazing. If you guys aren't following Leah, Hair by Leah, she's incredible. She's talented. I can't say enough about her as just a human being. Big shout out to you, girlfriend. All right, you guys, have a beautiful night. And if you missed this, I will save it. It's recorded. Talk to you guys next week.